Okay, friends, we're live. Good to see you. Rusty here, CFLW for this Tuesday. It's 4:02. Coming on simply because I think this is a scenario that we should probably just watch these storms together, at least for the next little bit. Make sure that they don't get too squirrely. We've got a lot of low bases to these thunderstorms that are developing across the I-4 corridor in Metro Orlando. I haven't noted a lot of rotation, but if there's anything that's going to try and pop up and produce a funnel cloud or an isolated tornado threat, it's going to be probably here in the short term with some of the collisions that we're beginning to see. So I thought it was pertinent enough just to jump on and kind of just watch this with you guys, right? Keep an eye on this because we'll look at some of the cameras that I have and just everything kind of pointed to why not jump on and talk to my friends here live on the CFLW channel. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, CFLW is sponsored by the leading law firm of Central Florida. They're your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. It is storm season. You get storm damage of any kind. They'll walk you through every step of the insurance claim process. Go to leanonmelaw.com if you would like more information. So again, live on this Tuesday afternoon here just after 4 o'clock. Now, the situation, if you guys joined me for yesterday's live show, is that we do have a stalled boundary, which is basically draped right over Central Florida. And we're beginning to see the collision of the sea breeze. There's a lot of mid and upper level energy support. And we're just really getting some pretty squirrely storms out there at the hour. This is the reflectivity, which you guys are obviously used to seeing. When I throw on the velocity here, switch over to the velocity product. So, we're going to have to watch out for are there any areas of rotation embedded within some of this, because I can promise you that we have some really low bases and a lot of scud clouds kind of trying to fill in. Now, again, just because you have low bases doesn't mean you actually have any rotation with those storms or you don't have significant rotation, but, there's going to be a lot of ominous and SLCs, I call them, scary looking clouds out there, at least for the time being. And I actually took some pictures myself that I'm going to show you guys coming up. Hey Fiona, how you doing? Hey Amy, how are you as well? Hope you're doing well. Again, there's not a lot of lightning associated with this. This is more about just watching how this is going to evolve in the next little bit, and then seeing again if we're going to get any kind of collision of these storms. Because if there's going to be some rotation at the lower levels, it's going to be at the beginning of all of this initiation. Once these storms really begin to explode and mushroom out, and we start to see some collisions in larger areas, that's all going to combine. It's going to muddy the atmosphere, and we're not more than likely going to have any chance for rotation. But again, if you live in the Metro Orlando area and you step outside right now, there's some squirrely pictures. Let's take a look at some of this. This is a live look to Winter Garden. Okay, and again, now what's happening is we're looking west, and this shelf cloud and these low decks of clouds are moving away from the camera, but you'll note how low the bases are with this. And again, just taking a look at this camera, obviously what I'd be looking for is there any spin at any of that base? But this is a very common sight right now in the western side of the Metro Orlando area, even up through portions of Lake County as well. Just again, really ominous sky, overcast, bit of a breeze, a lot of low bases to these clouds. Let's go over to Winter Park. They're getting some rain and storms right now in Winter Park. So now you have, again, overcast skies here at the Lean Law Cam in Winter Park, the rain coming down. The rain is going to spread out, it's going to fill in. And once this happens, again, any real threat for an isolated rotation within your area kind of goes away, and you just get the rain and the storms that we've been talking about here with some locally heavy rainfall and the potential for some flooding. But you can clearly see here in Winter Park, the rain is beginning to really come in. Same situation in the Conway area as well. Again, we have mainly overcast skies east of I-4 at this point in time. And again, a little bit of a breeze, some rain out there as well. And then towards the attractions area, this is going to be again from Lake Buena Vista, looking to the south and to the east. Again, you can kind of see on the right-hand side of your screen the leading shelf cloud, because the activity in the western side of Orange County is building west at this point in time. Remember, there's very slow, erratic movement to these storms, which is why the locally heavy rainfall is certainly a possibility as well. So appreciate you guys jumping in. Let me know in the comments section below what's been happening. Fiona says our patio, no rain there in Altamont. A little bit of a gap there, Fiona, no doubt about it. But again, the biggest concern that I have is there any rotation with some of this activity? Now, I went out and I actually took some pictures. And I am actually, as we're looking at this, guys, I'm going to try and upload these pictures So if you'll bear with me, we'll kind of talk through this. I'm going to try and upload these pictures to my software, and I'm trying to do two things at once. So talking and thinking about the process that I have to do to get through this is going to be fun. But I want to bring these pictures that I personally took and to show you guys the reason why I jumped on it, because I didn't like what I saw. You know, again, let me be clear, very, very clear. There is no tornado warning. There is no severe thunderstorm warning from the National Weather Service. But a couple of days ago, we had a brief tornado in Palm Bay without having a warning. That's how quickly these things can develop in this kind of an environment. So, you know, again, why not jump on, talk with my friends for a little bit, just watch this kind of together evolve, at least through the 4 o'clock hour. Hi, Nephilium? I'm going to go with that. A little bit of drizzle there in Poinciana. Appreciate you letting me know that. Hey, Amy, you've had lots of rain there in Ormond Beach the last couple of days. So again, just really ominous skies out there, guys. That's the situation at this point in time through a lot of our area. We'll go back over to the radar. Again, there's your boundary, and not a lot of lightning as of yet, right? Not expecting there to have a lot of lightning right now, but a little bit later into the afternoon and early evening, we'll get a little bit more intense activity. So I'm going to take a look at a couple of other products here. Looking for what we call gate-to-gate shear. So that's good spin in the atmosphere. If you notice these blues and reds, they're not very bright, but they're right over I-4 and just to the west. And this is the area right now where we have kind of the squirreliest collision of boundaries, right? You know, to kind of point this out here, this little gap, you can see all that bright green, right? So there's a little bit of a twist there, and you know, that would be an area to monitor, because when you bring back on the reflectivity, you notice that south of there, it's clear. So you have a lot of instability and low-level southerly winds coming into this side of the storm from Avalon Park towards Lake Nona. Another area I was monitoring, if you notice that there's a gap in the rain in the Hamlin Lake Butler area, and then we have this heavy activity over Oakland and Winter Garden, that's where I'm going to show you the pictures from. That's where I live. I live in western side of Orange County, and they're quite interesting to say the least. So again, guys, if you're just tuning in, this was a scenario where I felt might as well come on. Let's watch these storms together evolve, because we've had some really interesting collisions. These storms are producing really low bases to these clouds, where a funnel cloud or an isolated tornado threat is going to exist with some of this activity in the shorter term. And we'll just watch it together over the next whatever we need to be quite honest. I'm going to go back over to my weather computer here. This image might go blank for a second, so bear with me. I'm going to see if I can get this to pop up. Here we go. All right. So these were 3 different pictures that I took myself in the Winter Garden area up towards Ocoee not that long ago. And this is why I came on, all right? So you can see the lower bases. You can see some of what we call the feeder clouds coming into that, and just a lot of low rotation. And then you get this right here. This is what we call scud clouds. Now this is detached from that base, but these scud clouds, which were even lower, and by the way, here's a reference, there's a house. These scud clouds were about 50 feet off of the ground. These things were racing west, probably around 50, 60 miles an hour. So again, it's a still, should have probably taken a video, but you get the idea. So again, credit to me, all 3 pictures, but I just wanted to show you what the variety is out there right now with some of this. And again, if you live in the Metro Orlando area, some of these kind of clouds are absolutely possible. So might as well just watch this together and see how this plays out. All right. And I'll show you that from time to time as well. And again, the live look to Winter Garden, if you look at the bottom of your screen, still a sharp low base to some of that cloud coverage. And that again is now moving into the far western side of Orange County and getting into Lake County. And again, a little bit more overcast sky at the hour there. Winter Park, again, gray, some rain. And you can see the thicker bases and that brighter cloud coverage on the other side of Conway at this point in time as well. So just some interesting weather to watch with you guys here over the next little bit. Appreciate you tuning in. Now, the other thing about this is slow, erratic movement, heavy rainfall. As I was speaking, we now have a new flash flood warning, and this is going to be the other thing that will be produced out of the storms for today. So now you have a flash flood warning for the next hour and a half for Orlando and Azalea Park. Again, it's a really small area, but let's take a look at why the National Weather Service in Melbourne issued this. All right, so it's going to go until 5:45. We have 3.5 inches of rain in that small little area of Azalea Park, with another 1.5 inches possible. So now you're looking at 5 inches of rain. If you guys joined me for yesterday's live show, I told you that between yesterday afternoon and even Wednesday morning, it wasn't out of the question to get 10 inches of rain in some areas, because we could pile up 4, 5, 6 inches of rain in one afternoon. And if you get that twice in a row, you're in that 6, 8, even 10-inch rainfall total mark. So again, flash flood warning for our friends in Azalea Park, the the northeast side of the Orlando area. So right near our camera, right? Conway, there's Baldwin Park, and there's our other camera in Winter Park as well. So again, small creeks and streams, Orlando, Azalea Park, the little Econ River included in this. Obviously, it's not a great scenario when you're talking about that kind of prolific rainfall, and we're now into the 4 o'clock hour and we're trying to get home, right? So you got a lot of I-4 covered up with some rain, especially into southern Seminole and Orange counties. And the movement of this, because I haven't really looped this up for you guys because it really isn't necessary, it's just not going anywhere, right? You've got some storms that have been in the northern areas pushing to the south and to the west, other areas and the southern sides of Orange County and Osceola County building north. So now you have that nice collision. And again, whenever we have the collision here, so let me give you another example. This would be another area to watch for some rotation in the Apopka area as these storms begin to collide, right? Because you're going to get some interesting wind fields being produced out of that, right? You can clearly see the collision of those right here. So I would be looking for brighter reds and greens in the Apopka area. Right now, all of this is very, very weak, and that's what we want to see. But as far as just some really interesting cloud features, we're out there, we're going to get it. All right, let me jump back over to the chat. Thanks, Fiona. I hope that tells the story. Hey, Gaming with Jamie, how are you? Good afternoon from Arcadia. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you're doing well. Hope everyone's doing well today. Thanks for taking a quick second, by the way, and hitting that like button on this live stream. Subscribing to CFLW if you haven't as of yet. Again, if you're new to the channel, it's a live-only channel. I'm only on when there's some impactful weather here in Central Florida, and I thought that the storms that we're seeing beginning to develop here warranted coming on and just simply monitoring the situation for you guys. Again, as we speak right now, the only quote-unquote issue that we have is going to be a flash flood warning, and that is for a teeny tiny part of the Orlando metro area. But you know, we're getting these collisions of storms and these outflow boundaries and just old boundaries in general from all the activity that we've had, and some low-level rotation is not out of the question. Again, if you hadn't heard, we had a brief tornado in Palm Bay a couple of days ago, and just the conditions that I saw, I felt warranted us, you know, coming back on and talking about this. Now, the excessive rainfall risk for today is everyone, right? So if you live in Central Florida, you are under at least a 1 out of 4 on the scale, if you will, risk for excessive rainfall. What this is that it means that there's a 5 to 10% chance within anywhere in the green of exceeding flash flood criteria. And obviously we've already had that happen in one area of Metro Orlando with an even higher potential down in the southeast Florida. But the excessive rainfall risk continues for tomorrow as well, and hopefully begins to dissipate on Thursday. Thursday might be a transition day, getting out of any heavy rainfall, getting back into more generalized thunderstorms here in the late summer months. Switch over to the risk of severe storms for today. The SPC has us in just the general thunderstorm risk, so not even a marginal risk, which is good news. So hopefully we're not going to see anything organized. And then let's check out if we've had any local storm reports lately as well. So this product, if we saw some icons on here, would let us know that there has been, within the last 6 hours, some kind of local storm report. It could be flooding, could be wind, hail, anything. I don't see anything out of that. Potentially, we might get one in the area where we have the flash flood warning, but at this point in time, we don't. Now, we do have just issued a special weather statement for this storm here. And this is another one of those storms. Again, do you guys see how there's open air to the south and that low level instability and moisture will be coming into the south part of this storm, and how that's a pretty sharp area to the south? So, again, I'm not I haven't read this special weather statement, but it's not going to shock me if they mention a funnel cloud as a possibility. So let's read this together. Strong thunderstorm with potential for funnel clouds will impact west central Brevard and southeastern Orange counties through 4:30. Doppler radar tracking a strong thunderstorm over the Lone Cabbage Fish Camp. And again, it's nearly stationary. Winds of up to 40 miles an hour. So right here, more than likely is going to be some rotation right over 520. Okay? And then moving off towards the east. So let's track this. Again, because it's stationary, my weather computer has this eking where it's not even hitting I-95 until about 5 o'clock, right? But do you also notice that there's the bright fuchsia colors and neon blue here? That is high reflectivity, potentially indicative of even some smaller sized hail. Again, the special weather statement doesn't include that, but it's not out of the question. So again, winds of 40, Rockledge, Cocoa Sharps, Port St. John, and the Lone Cabbage Fish Camp within this special weather statement. Now, the interesting thing is this only goes for 12 minutes. So the Weather Service has it till 4:30, and then they're probably going to evaluate the situation from there. I want to bring on wind gusts too, so if we have any of the METAR sites pick up the winds. Now, obviously, we have to look at velocity here too, so let's do that. Yeah, there's certainly a little bit of spin there. No doubt about it. We're looking for bright greens and bright reds close to each other, right where that caret is. We have a little bit of that, so just north of 528, but more than likely you have a broad base with a very low base, by the way, kind of rotating over 520 at this point in time. So that's a storm to keep an eye on. Winds have been in the 20 to 25 mile an hour range here. Again, kind of squirrely out in most of Orange County. The radar beginning to fill in, but there are still some pockets of, I think, areas to monitor here for rotation. And then just the fact that, again, that these storms aren't moving very fast, the very heavy rainfall to come along with it. Everything out west right now looks to be cooperating. This is just some shower activity for Bellevue and the villages and Wildwood and Lake Pan and Floral City. Not too concerned there. Along the coast, the rain is scattered, but it also looks just to be some showers. Now, again, some fresh breezes from time to time. So the last report out of Daytona Beach, they had a 28 mile an hour wind out of the northeast. That's going to be that onshore flow. But you notice that they have some onshore winds here, and yet the storms in southeast Orange County and Brevard are actually moving slowly from west to east. All right. Let's get back over to our live cameras. Live look outside of Winter Garden. Again, still overcast. You can kind of see all the striations and just a lot of instability. And again, these are really, really low base clouds too. So something to monitor there. Winter Park is still mainly overcast. We've had some showers. You can see the rain hitting the lens there at the lean log camera in Winter Park. Just taking a look at those clouds. So I'm looking at that little lighter area here and just seeing how that's moving. This camera, by the way, is looking east to southeast, right? Now, I wish I could tell you the exact movement of what this activity is. It looks like it's coming over the camera, so it's moving a little bit west, but in Orlando, we probably have all cardinal directions of storm movement right now. I mean, everything is kind of twisting and moving in different directions, which is, again, why you have these, these very, interesting boundaries that come together and produce some areas of low-level rotation with that. So, looks like they're going to get a little bit more rain back into Winter Park here shortly, a little bit more of a breeze as well. Here's Conway. Now, again, just on the other side of the lake is where we have the flash flood warning. And you can kind of see the brighter whites at the horizon. Again, you have a healthy storm that's right over the Azalea Park area, north and east of Conway, that's not really moving much. And that's why you have the flash flood warning. And then for the attractions area, again, at this point in time, it's just some light rain under overcast skies. There's not a lot of lightning associated with this as well. So we're okay at the attractions so far, but again, a situation we got to monitor pretty closely over the next little bit. And again, if you guys are just tuning in, these were the photos that I took myself. Think about the time here. Anywhere from about 3:20 to 3:45, so not that long ago. Again, what you're looking at, first of all, a couple of really low bases to these clouds, right? And I mean, look at this one. This was the one that concerned me the most because you could, there's a little bit of broad rotation with that. You could drop down a funnel at any point in time there. Then you had this activity moving east to west in the western side of Orange County. Here's a house, and these scud clouds were only about 50 feet off the ground, and they were hauling at around 50 to 60 miles an hour, I would approximate, as I watched them swing through. So, again, very ominous skies, a lot of broad low-level rotation, nothing too tight yet, but it warranted coming on and just hanging out with my friends, at least for the next little bit here, to see how this plays out. Again, ultimately, I think this transitions into widespread heavy rain that doesn't move much with a flood event more than anything. But in the short term, got to watch out for rotation, got to watch out for some stronger storms. All right, back out to the chat. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, first of all, if you're here, thanks for so much. Take a quick second, hit that like button for me. Thanks for subscribing to the channel if you haven't. Thanks for coming into the chat and saying hi. Again, this is interactive. This is why I do it. Love to hear from you guys. So, you have a specific question about the forecast, let me know. If you're involved in some of this weather, let us know in the comments section below. It helps everyone out, gives me some ground truth information, lets everyone in the chat know exactly what's happening in your area. Again, this is kind of the wisdom of the crowd scenario, so I'd love to hear from you guys to help tell the weather story. Again, at this point in time, we have this special weather statement, and that's just a really funky looking base there, man. I don't like it. There's definitely some rotation here. All right, so let's get a little bit more into this. We've got some rotation, still relatively broad, but potentially trying to sharpen up right over 520, headed towards 95. Now again, it's not moving very quickly. There looks to be a little bit of an easterly movement, if anything. Let's put this into motion over the last half hour. This is a half hour loop. And you can just see that little notch form right here. And you notice that there's a void in the reflectivity on the northeast side. That's because of the counterclockwise spin coming back into the vortex, okay? It's still broad, but we have this little appendage with a notch. It's not great. Now it looks like we just got the latest radar scan. It might have filled in a little bit, which would be great. In these environments, sometimes you get something that looks bad and then it goes away and then it pops back up. But there's still a sharp reflectivity drop on the south side of that. You see how everything's just cluttered there. This is an area to watch for sure. And I want to be clear, that's why they put the special weather statement on it. Again, they put the special weather statement on this area for funnel clouds. Now, another area to watch would be on the east side of this. Heavy rain getting into Port St. John and Sharps. But generally speaking, along the southern flank, that's what we'll be watching for. Now, if you live in Rockledge, if you live in Cocoa, got to keep an eye out, again, for what's happening west of you at this point in time. And again, we do have a flash flood warning for the Azalea Park area of Orlando. Again, our camera here in Conway is actually looking over that spot. The Weather Service has 3.5 inches of rain in that area already, with an additional 1.5 inches, so up to 5 inches of rain possible. It's a horrible time for all of this to happen, by the way. Obviously, it's drive time home. You've got pockets of very heavy rainfall across I-4. And again, looking from the Melbourne radar, we have some pretty good storms along the East Coast. It's much more spotty along the West Coast. The storms here in our northwest areas are just that, a little bit of rain. Bellevue, the Villages, Wildwood, they're cooperating though. Even on the northern flank of this, it's heavy rain, but we're fine. Not seeing any rotation. This is just some good shower activity right now. Again, wet commute home, Orange City, Deltona, Sanford, Lake Mary, even towards Apopka and Winter Springs. Again, on the western side of this, there was a little bit of squirrely activity and some broad rotation there as well earlier. Everything looks to be okay there so far, or right now at least. Again, you can kind of see just embedded within that. Red would be winds going away from the radar site, green going towards. So we look for pixels of different colors. close to each other, indicating rotation. So there's the spot in Brevard County. Do a couple of things here. Kind of live analysis with you guys. So just looking to see if the Storm Prediction Center issued any mesoscale areas. They have here for heavy rainfall, but that's south and west of us. I guess the southern side of Sarasota County. So that would be an area that they're really monitoring for heavy rain. But again, we already have our flash flood warning. Just want to make sure they weren't talking about any additional broader funnel cloud issue. I don't believe we have any advisories that are currently into play that would warrant discussion. Obviously, if you live along the St. John's and Astor, you guys know you got a flood warning there. Okay, so let's go back over to the radar. Get back over to the chat myself. All right. So I'll be interested to see what the Weather Service does with this special weather statement, right? You know, the reason why they issued this is for the funnel cloud threat. Sorry, I just heard something outside the window. Wanted to make sure it wasn't weather related. Sounded a little weird. You know, winds of 40, but it's basically the fact that they were worried about funnel cloud potential out of this. Now, they haven't reissued it yet. So we'll see. They might let it go and just kind of monitor and reissue if they feel like they have to. But that's a squirrely storm. That one is going to bear some watching on the eastern flank and the southern flank. Especially because, again, there's fairly undisturbed air south of there. So you get that kind of warm, moisture-laden air that's not disturbed. It hasn't been raked over by storms, and it can feed into the south side of the storm and, you know, sharpen up that rotation from time to time. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to produce a tornado, but low bases and rotating storms are going to be a threat for the next little bit here. So that special weather statement looks like it's going to be allowed to expire. We'll see if they fire it back up. Numbers that you see are wind gusts in miles an hour. And you also notice here, and I'll loop this up for you guys, you also just notice that overall, we're just beginning to expand this rain field, and that will continue to be the case, but there's no steering current in the atmosphere right now. If there is a little bit of a steering current, it's south and west, which is why the activity in our southern areas has pushed up, but we've also had the East Coast sea breeze kick in, and that's driven some rain back, you know, again, into inland Volusia and Lake and portions of Seminole and Orange County. So that's where we also had a meeting of some of these boundaries, which produced some of the clouds that I showed you a little bit earlier from the pictures that I took, right? But again, just heavy rainfall. It's not going to be fun for the drive home, regardless of whether we get a storm to produce any rotation. All right, so they've let that go, which is great. How we doing, by the way, guys? Is everyone okay today? Doing well. Appreciate you tuning in. Obviously, unpleasant outdoor plans being canceled. My son had a middle school soccer game today that got canceled. But I told my wife, I said, get prepared. It's coming. I don't see how they're going to be able to play it. But better safe than sorry, especially with kids. But, you know, any outdoor plans here, you just got to, you know, watch out for it. And look, I know that there's no lightning right now, but we saw how these storms got cranked up yesterday, and there's a lot of juice in the atmosphere overall. So any of these boundaries coming together could produce a storm that goes up fast and does produce a lot of lightning. So I would take it very cautiously, you know, for the remainder of the afternoon and the evening hours if you do have any outdoor plans at all. And obviously traveling is not fantastic as well. All right, let's jump over to our live camera network. Always like to keep an eye out for this. since we have them. So you're looking live to Winter Garden, western side of Orange County. Again, some of this activity has moved west, so we've kind of filled in the sky with more overcast conditions. Bases aren't as low as what they were as the initial storm kind of developed over western Orange County, but obviously still a bit of an ominous look to the sky. At this point in time, not a lot of rain in far western Orange County. It's kind of hit or miss more than anything. You get to Winter Park, and again, it's overcast skies. The rain is falling there. Not a lot of wind, right? We've had some 20, 25 mile an hour wind gusts from time to time, and that's mainly once you get the collision boundaries. But, you know, when you get under the veil of the moderate to heavier rain, you're not going to have a ton of wind overall with this. This is going to end up being a big old shield of rain than anything, no doubt about it. Conway Cam, again, bit of a breeze there. On the opposite side of the lake, on the left-hand side of your screen, you're looking towards the Azalea Park area, and that's where they have the flash flood warning. Again, 3.5 inches of rain has already fallen. So again, it might look like an innocuous view here, but we've had some very heavy rain in portions of the downtown Orlando area and areas to the east of downtown as well. And then on over towards the attractions. Again, at this point in time, it's just some light shower activity towards Lake Buena Vista. This camera is just 1 mile for the Magic Kingdom property. So, you know, just beyond this grove of trees here, we'd get back into the Disney area and Epcot and Disney Springs, and obviously places like Universal and iDrive and Epic Universe, not far from this camera view, whatever. So always like to monitor this situation. But again, right now, no lightning, which is always the biggest impact to the attractions and wanting to be outdoors. And again, if you guys just tuned in as well, these were the photos that I took personally today, anywhere from about 3:20 to 3:45. And they're all the old SLCs, guys. There's all those old scary looking clouds, really low dark bases, a little bit of broad rotation with that, and then that bright white cloud that you see on the bottom of your screen, that bottom picture is what we call a scud cloud. It was detached from everything else, but you want to talk about a lot of juice at the low levels. This was racing out by itself. It was probably going about 50, 60 miles an hour. So there was just a lot of, you know, wind being fed into the leading edge of this storm. Everything was moving this way. So interesting indeed. Hey, Cole, great for the grass and gardens, bad for the kids' sports practices. It's always a give and a take, right? Yeah, look, some areas could use the rain. My biggest concern is that even if you could use rain, you're going to get more rain than you end up wanting in some spots like Azalea Park right now. And again, an additional flood threat will come tomorrow as well. We'll continue to see some storms, produce the opportunity for some very heavy rainfall to go along again at the beginning of all of the activity firing up. There's going to be a lot of boundaries in play from all of the outflow boundaries of the storms from the previous days for the east and the west coast sea breezes coming on shore. And then again, we have this trough, this boundary in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, which is draped right over us, and it's just enhancing all of this activity, right? Eventually, this is going to push south of us, all right? It's going to slowly drag south. The question is how quickly it does that. I think more than likely during the day, Thursday is when that's going to happen. But through today, tomorrow, it's still situated overhead, and a fairly similar setup is likely to evolve through our Wednesday afternoon as well. We're in the mid-afternoon hours, late afternoon hours, we get an opportunity for some rotating storms, right? Got to watch out for any of that to produce a funnel. And then we get into a heavy rain threat in most areas where the weak steering currents are not going to allow these storms to push anywhere very quickly, and they're going to be widespread. So just pockets of heavy, heavy rain. And again, this is not good when these storms are going this way and these storms are going this way. So right over Orlando, you hardly have any movement right now. I mean, this rain is barely moving at this point in time. 25 mile an hour wind gust at the Executive Airport, 21 at MCO. Daytona nearly had a 30 mile an hour wind. Again, these are just some showers for Bellevue and the Villages and Wildwood, creeping west towards Hernando, Inverness, and Floral City, Lake Pan, Coleman, down towards Bushnell. It's been relatively quiet through most of the Tampa Bay area and St. Pete. Additional heavy rain is likely in the southern side of Sarasota County, and then off to the south from there. We've had a couple of stronger storms near Vero Beach. And again, this one still bears some watching. They just put a new special weather statement. I was like, this is the one that still bears watching. Like, we're not gonna discount this one until it's offshore. So again, same situation, new special weather statement, not surprising. More than likely when we click on it, there's going to be a mention of a funnel cloud. Here you go. Strong thunderstorm, possible funnel clouds, central Brevard County through 5. Doppler radar tracking a strong thunderstorm over Sharps, moving southeast at 5, winds of up to 40. So, there'll be some wind, but this is like the Weather Service saying, look, we're aware of this storm. We know it looks really scary. We know that there's some rotation. We're throwing this special weather statement on mainly to kind of apprise you of that we know, and that if we need to fire off a tornado warning because we do see rotation at the ground, we can do that, and you guys are already knowing the area that we're talking about. Sure, this storm could produce 40-mile-an-hour winds, but been in this business long enough to know that they're issuing this special weather statement because they're concerned about the funnel clouds. If you notice, that's the first sentence. All right. Southeast at 5. A little bit of gusty winds. Rockledge, Cocoa, Sharps, Port St. John, Merritt Island. Summary for you right here. My radar has it going southeast at 7, so about the same. And again, the Weather Service is going to round up or down every 5. So my system's actually more accurate at 7 miles an hour. Max winds of 40. So again, leading edge of this, right? Let's get rid of our box. Going over the river right now into Merritt Island. You've got this notch, which continues to look interesting. You've got this notch, which looks a little bit interesting as well. Everything is dry on the south side, so warm moisture-laden air feeding in at the low levels in the southern flank of these storms. Again, you have a bit of rotation right here. Now, when it moves over the rivers, you guys know friction difference, land, water, friction difference. Very, very capable of producing a funnel cloud or a water spout over the rivers, okay? So this is going to be the 528. And then we've got the 520 towards the Pineda Causeway. But if you notice, do you see how all this is right over the river right now? Very, very classic scenario where when you have a storm that's rotating and then you get the smooth waters relatively to the rough land, that friction difference can allow there to be a quick spin up. Seen it many, many times, both moving inland and moving offshore. Hey Carson, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you tuning in. Absolutely heavy, heavy rain chance. A little bit of some squirrely weather to go along with everything too. You can just see that right over the river. A couple of spots, and of course, comes back over Merritt Island and then swings back over the Indian River. So you've got friction difference, land, friction difference, Cape, Barrier Islands offshore. It's always interesting in Brevard County when storms come in and they're rotating. Just looking at a couple of different products here, guys. Doing a little analysis with you. Trying to pick up if there's any spots that we need to really keep an eye on. I think it's that one there. Let's look at the south flank. A little bit more muddied towards Rockledge at this point. A little bit of a notch there. Where's our other area? It was 528, wasn't it? Yeah. You see how that red's right there ahead of it too. So there's definitely a little bit of a weakness there. Okay. I think we've identified our areas of potential risk. Obviously, if you guys live in these areas, take a photo, send them to me, cflwlive@gmail.com. I can effort to try and get them on for you. See if this is really moving. It is kind of moving a little bit south of east, isn't it? Yeah, just a little bit. Okay, so you also notice too that you have actually some shower activity developing ahead of this. This is actually a good thing, right? This is going to cut off some of the instability and kind of choke the inflow of the storm. So this is not the worst thing. Now this still could help produce something, but I like to see this rain developing in Merritt Island ahead of it because it's going to try and choke the inflow of this notch in this broad rotation over Sharps. So that's not the worst thing in the world to actually see that happening right now. Sometimes this moisture can get fed into the south side. You can actually get a redevelopment of some rotation there. But that's the south winds ahead of it, really moisture-laden air feeding into the leading edge of these storms, which is, why we have the funnel cloud risk in these spots. But I think this is good. This is marginal. Go back out live. So it's good to see that some of the rain, and we're probably being a little rain blocked here. We're not cutting through too bad here, actually, from the Melbourne radar. It's good to see that some of the rain has dissipated a bit. The southern half of Orange County, basically from the 408 south. So we're not getting the most intense rain in the flash flood area that we had. So they have had 3.5 inches of rain here, but the rain is actually pretty light at this point in time over Azalea Park. So hopefully, again, there's no additional flash flooding that's occurring. And that flash flood warning goes for the next, I believe, hour and 8 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to reset things here real fast. Goes to the next hour. Heavy rain, Sanford, Lake Mary, Winter Springs. Not going to be fun for the I-4 drive over this area. Slow go, more than likely. Please take it easy. Wekiva Springs, Apopka as well. Again, the rain has broken apart a bit. Pine Hills, Orla Vista, Ocoee, Gotha, Oakland. There's the leading edge of some of that activity that has now slipped south and west of Lake Apopka towards Mineola, Montverde. But again, I don't see much rotation with that. Everything looks okay right now. I mean, again, if you live in these areas like Claremont, Montverde, more than likely you're seeing some lower bases to some of this activity, and there could be some broad spin. But I don't see anything that's tight or necessarily too close to the ground. And these storms are moving west deeper into Citrus County, but that's all they are right now. Not concerned about that, just some heavy rain and storms. Again, ultimately, guys, this is going to turn into a heavy rainfall event and a flash flood potential and just a really stormy remainder of the day. Now, the Weather Service, as they always do, very much ahead of time for great reasons, they issue the special marine warnings. So obviously any boaters in coastal Brevard County and the Indian and Banana Rivers, they want to be finding shelter here, right? Not a lot of lightning, but funnel clouds, rotating storms, and potentially some lightning down the road as well. I'm sure the special marine advisory mentions that as well. Water spouts and wind gusts to 34. Well, Joseph, I mean, we could ask about so many different things about Florida, not just the weather, right? It's just what we have in play right now. We have this stalled out boundary draped over our area. And so all of the local mechanisms that we get this time of the year with our sea breezes are enhanced because of that. We also have all the old outflow boundaries from the storms the last couple of days, which produce new outflow boundaries today and caused there to be some rotation. And the other thing is that there's nothing pushing these storms fast. The steering currents are basically non-existent. So you have really slow moving storms, some of them producing heavier rain, and that's where you get the flood threat too. Hey Linda, how you doing? Linda getting some good rain in Titusville. Hey Ashru, how are you? Fairly quiet in Conway. Just rain right now, nothing too bad. Yeah, it kind of developed over you and then moved away, right? You know, and that can certainly be a case for some of these spots as well. And it is quieting down downtown south towards MCO, Avalon Park, Wedgefield, Kissimmee, St. Cloud look pretty good. Much heavier rain, northern half of the metro area to Sanford, Deltona, even up towards DeLand. It's scattered rain right now, Daytona Beach and Ormond. Take a look real quickly here, just to make sure we're not getting too much of a rain shadow effect here. So this is the composite radar. Yeah, it looks about the same. I mean, it's really light. Ormond Beach, Daytona. Picks up De Leon Springs, DeLand, Orange City. Sanford, Lake Mary. Another pocket of heavier rain, Bellevue, Villages, Inverness, Floral City. But again, one thing that's absent so far is lightning. There's a few lightning strikes, but not much. That should change a little bit. You know, maybe not having the most prolific thunderstorms, but you get the idea. All right, so we know that we have the special marine warning. I'm just going to drop that off so it's easier to keep an eye on this special weather statement. So let's get rid of that. And again, this special weather statement will take us to the top of the hour. Again, still notice that on the southern flank of this, we still have this appendage. More than likely, we're going to have just some rotation there from time to time. I got a new mouse, and I'm like working it out right now, trying to figure out how fast it moves. It's an improvement from the one that I had, but I'm still getting used to it. So every so often, it will zoom out really quickly, and it'll surprise me. I'll be like, wait a minute, did I really have it going that fast? You can see that these brighter greens are coming in. And again, the radar site in Melbourne is very close to this. So these are basically ground truth winds, right? Meaning winds that are actually at the surface. So let's take a look at those. Got a couple of 30s here and there. That's what I would expect. You know, maybe 30, 35. Again, the special weather statement goes to 40. Plausible. Should be less than that in most spots. The main reason why they have this special weather statement is for the rotation and the opportunity for a funnel cloud. Let's go back over to our cameras. And in a situation like this, I never like to get too far away from those. So live look outside of Winter Garden. Again, we're looking west towards Lake County. That's going to be on the leading edge of some of that activity, closer to Claremont and Montverde. So you can see the darker lower bases there. But certainly, you know, the altitude, if you will, of the base of the clouds in Winter Garden has risen significantly. Again, you know, I'll go back to the photos that I took less than an hour ago in some areas where, you know, these bases were just off the ground. So we're looking better there. Still have the overcast skies. If you look in the background there, you can see some of those kind of fluffier white clouds. That's indicative of just some really heavy rain situated just east of Winter Park. You know, at this point in time, they've had a few showers there, nothing extremely heavy. So here's Conway where the winds have freshened up. Again, on the opposite side of the lake, and on the left-hand side of your screen would be closer to the Azalea Park area where they have the flash flood warning, where they already had 3.5 inches of rain and another 1.5 inches is possible. But since they've issued the flash flood warning, a lot of the heaviest rain has moved out of that area, which is not bad news. And Disney right now is relatively quiet. Again, overcast, some light rain, no lightning. We'll take that. Not an ominous sky, but not the worst. So I do want to bring up these photos again. Again, I took these photos myself between about 3:20 and 3:45 this afternoon. So you can clearly see much darker bases here, you know, that low deck there, that appendage coming off, feeding into it. You know, this was the scariest one here, right? That I thought, all right, we might actually produce a little something here, because there was some broad rotation, but nothing was very tight, right? And again, I think the Weather Service was absolutely correct not issuing any tornado warnings. There's been no reports of anything on the ground, but you see this and you know that more of that's happening, and this is why I jumped on. Just wanted to make sure I covered basically, you know, through the 4 o'clock hour at least, just to make sure that as these storms developed, nothing got too squirrely out there. And again, you have this scud cloud activity, this wider cloud out ahead of the darker bases, all by itself detached, but it was racing about 50 feet up from the ground. I mean, here's a roof of a house to give you some perspective. It's probably racing 50, 60 miles an hour from the right to the left-hand side of your screen. These clouds were much slower. These clouds were just whisking across. So it just showed you all the instability in the lower levels of the atmosphere. All right, back over to this special weather statement. Again, appreciate my friends tuning in. Thank you so much for joining me here. Good to see you on a Tuesday. Monitoring my phone for anything as well. So far, so good. If you guys know as well, I gotta keep sipping some water or something. All right. Let's reset the scenario, friends. Bring back on our wind gusts. Notice that all the lightning is south of here. I mean, like Yeehaw Junction into Indian River County. There's more juice south. And again, that's why I was concerned about any of these storms that were kind of exposed to the south, allowing this warm, unstable, moisture-laden air to feed into the southern flank of it and what could be produced out of that, right? That was more down here. It was more of the collision of the boundaries in the Metro Orlando area that I was most concerned about. Now you can clearly see that this has kind of homogenized and it's expanded in the moderate to heavy rain, but there's not going to be a ton of rotation within this anymore. And again, there's even some breaks, Winter Park, Pine Hills, back down towards Winter Garden. I would expect them to allow this flash flood warning to expire when it gets to, I believe is that going to be 545, excuse me. More than likely, I think they're going to let that expire because the prominent rain has gone away. Again, flash flood warning means that there's flash flooding ongoing at this point in time. While there still might be some flooding of low-lying areas, there's probably not any additional flooding occurring at that point in time. So I would expect them to drop that. Let's see here. Get rid of the special weather statement again. Again, still just monitoring this one. We've got it going for the next 6 minutes. Some of the areas included with this, by the way, of course, is going to be Cocoa, Rockledge, Merritt Island, potentially Vieira. We can do a storm track on it too. I mean, I've neglected to do so because it's just moving so slowly. We can give it a shot. And again, how much is it going to let me turn? Yeah, I knew it. I don't know why I even try. Let's go from here out. We're going to do a couple. Again, 7 miles an hour. So Merritt Island, again, so slow. And again, it's by the way where the city locator is. So this is what is being considered Merritt Island on the map, by the way, 529, and then Cocoa Beach at 546 when you're going at 7 miles an hour. And then this southern flank of the storm, again, 7 miles an hour. So Vieira north at 541. Slow, slow, slow. And that's even going a little bit faster than what the Weather Service has at 5. But even here, that's really heavy rain for Harmony and Holopaw, but there's no lightning. One lightning strike. That's it. I think I'm missing some of the chat. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm missing some of the chat. I've got a couple of different settings on the administrator side. Hey Blue Goose, how you doing? I saw you, good to see you. Hey Southeastern Georgia, South Carolina weather. Storm northwest of Port St. Lucie. Special weather statement soon. Yeah, more than likely. I mean, there's more juice down there. And even my algorithm has it as a potential hail producer. It would be really small hail, but that is a nastier storm there south of Vero Beach. And that's pretty clustered up. You know, we don't normally cover this far south, but that's where all the juiciest areas here for sure. You know, again, this is going to come in a couple of different parts for us here in Central Florida today. The first thing is that all of these old outflow boundaries from the storms yesterday, both sea breezes marching on shore and the mid-level boundary situated right over us, was going to produce the opportunity for some broad rotation or even sharpening up to become a little bit more prominent lower level rotation with some of this activity. Again, just 2 days ago, we had a brief tornado in the Palm Bay area in Brevard County. So, you know, that was my first concern. The second concern is going to be the fact that these storms are then going to, you know, really expand and be very slow moving. So it's going to be a rough drive home. There's going to be a lot of areas with the opportunity for some heavier rain, and then we transition more into a flood threat, right? We've had a couple of areas of flood advisories or flash flood warnings the last couple of afternoons. We've already gotten one in Orange County again for today near Azalea Park. It's a really small area, but again, as these storms collide, there's hardly any steering currents to push the storms away quickly. So they're just going to kind of sit over our area deep into the afternoon, well into the evening in some spots, and produce 2, 3, 4, maybe 5+ inches of rain. When you combine with what we've already had the last few days, right, you start to see some areas that can't handle as much rain, so you get low-level flooding happening a little bit quicker, ponding on roadways and things like that. We already have the flood for portions of the St. Johns River, and we're going to run it back for tomorrow as well. I don't really see much of a change. This boundary is going to slowly sink to the south, but it is still going to be right over Central Florida. So, you know, a potential same scenario for our Wednesday afternoon could certainly come along for the ride, where again, we're going to have to watch out for some funnel cloud rotating storms to begin the initiation of this activity and then transition into a potential heavy rain flooding threat in some spots. So this special weather statement is going to be allowed to expire here at 5 o'clock. We'll see if they reissue it. It doesn't look as good as what it has been. We'll go back over to our velocity more than anything. Again, if you guys notice that inherent within this, now you have all green. That's all, you know, unidirectional. So you have straight line winds coming out of this. And again, green means we're going towards the radar site. So all this wind is coming towards the radar in Melbourne. Still pockets of you know, stronger winds here on the far southern flank. And there's a little bit of muddiness, but there's not a lot of strong winds there. But that's a fresh breeze, you know, going over the Banana River there, over Cocoa and Rockledge, and then over Merritt Island. But as far as rotation goes, it's something at this point in time I'm not as concerned about. Again, southern flank always deserves attention. Out there kind of by its lonesome. But it's tried a couple of times to tighten up a little bit, and it just hasn't been able to. Hey Gary, how you doing? Bone dry in Tampa. I hear you, brother. Joseph wants to know what time to expect the rain to stop in Orlando. It's a fantastic question. If I'm being honest, this has to just basically fade. It's not moving anywhere. And in that situation, it typically takes deep into the evening for this to completely just kind of fade away, right? So in most areas in Metro Orlando, I can't tell you it's going to be dry until at least 8 or 9 o'clock tonight. It could be earlier in a couple of spots. It could be later in some, but it's not like we're watching a front coming in and these storms are moving southeast at 25 miles an hour. So we can clearly look at the sharp line of storms moving away and say we're fine. Again, this is an environment where these storms, and this is the loop over the last half hour, they're just sitting there. They're just not really moving. They're kind of spinning a little bit. We have a little bit of forward speed here, but this activity has not moved much. And so if we're going to get some additional heavy rain potential and potentially some flood advisories, it wouldn't shock me if it's going to be, you know, portions of northern Orange or Seminole County, right? And there is a flood advisory. So I can pick up on flood advisories, by the way. I just have to switch to a different product. So let me do that. So this is going to take you county by county. So you've got the flash flood warning in Orange County, but we also have a flood advisory too. The flood advisory goes until 6:15 for Orange and Seminole. Minor flooding 2.5 inches of rain have already fallen with an additional 2, so 2 to 2.5, or excuse me, 2 to 4.5. Sanford, Apopka, Altamont Springs, Winter Springs, Lake Mary, Longwood, Wekiva Springs, Forest City, Heathrow, South Apopka. And then you have another flood advisory till 5:30. For portions of Orange County, again, 1 to 3 with additional 2, so 3 to 5. And that's Orlando, Winter Park, Azalea Park, and Union Park. Flood advisory for Marion County till 6:30. Minor flooding. 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches. Not a ton, but some. With another 1 to 2. So 1.5 inches to 3.5 inches for Santos, Silver Spring Shores, and Bellevue. This one goes till 5:45 as well. This is for 2 to 3.5 inches of rain for Ocklawaha, Moss Bluff, Silver Spring Shores, Lake Weir, and Summerfield. The flood warning for Lake and Volusia is going to be for the St. Johns. It's not going to be for active flooding there. And then this flood advisory for Seminole County we've already talked about this one, I believe. Yeah. All right. And again, you've got your rip current and your special marine statements here. So when we go to flood advisories, I've just got to go to this county by county level rather than those polygons. So that's what I'm doing right there. Now, when we get as high end as a flash flood warning, then we'll pick it up on the system like this. So we do have a flash flood warning for the next 41 minutes for the Azalea Park area of Orlando, just east of downtown, right over the 408. But the heaviest rain has moved out of that area, so I'm hoping that the flash flood warning will be allowed to expire at 5:45. We have the special marine warning here. Again, this storm has kind of gotten muddied up, which is great. It had a couple of opportunities, I think, to produce a funnel, and it never did. And then we've got ourselves just a lot of rain to come. Okay, just back over to the winds. In the last hour, it looks like we've had some wind, but even a little bit lower than what we had earlier. So MCO, nothing. Downtown, 24. Lake Mary Sanford Airport there, 20. Just solid rain. All right. Let's take a look at our cameras. Again, Winter Garden. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you can again see that real low base. There's still some interesting features out there, right? So again, this is sneaking into eastern sides of Lake County. Just I'm going to take myself off camera real quick. And let's just look at that together. I'm going to lose my mic when I do this, but I'll be back on in just a second. Yeah, so you guys can clearly see, there's that broad spin. Now my name should hopefully go away here in just a second. Let's take my name off. We don't need to see my name. Let me go back to this camera. So this camera's looking west, so your counterclockwise rotation is going to take anything from the right-hand side of your screen to the left-hand side of your screen, and that's what you see down here. Still really broad, but again, that's a little bit of that squirreliness to some of the lower bases there into Lake County. So an idea of, again, we're not completely said and done with that opportunity, but generally speaking now we have more higher bases, overcast skies, moderate rain falling, heavy at times, lighter at times. Live look to the lean log cam there in Winter Park. And again, some of the cloud coverage moving relatively quickly at the lower levels. Conway has been okay. Again, Azalea Park is kind of right here, just on the other side of the lake and to the north. So, some light rainfall like in Conway, but nothing too significant, especially compared to what they saw in Azalea Park. And we're still fairly overcast, but just some light rain in Lake Buena Vista. Jump back over to the chat. Florida Vesta, no rain in Claremont yet. Yeah, just east of you. Just a little bit east of you right now. So what the Winter Garden camera was looking at is right here. right? So you've got, here's Winter Garden. It's looking right into this lower base. So a little bit of rain in Montverde, but even this reflectivity, again, it's not a lot of heavier rain, just darker lower bases of some of this activity. And again, no lightning out of this as well. Just a little squirrely appendage that's kind of sticking out by itself. Hey Garrett, how you doing, pal? Hope you're doing well. Hey Stevie Cakes, I hear you. A little bit funky in a couple of spots, no doubt about it. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you, Farah. Farah and Fiona are moderators of our channel and our chat for joining me live today. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a little bit funky, right? And again, I've been keeping a really close eye on some of the rotation here. It always gets interesting over Lake Apopka too. You guys know that, a little bit of fresher wind here, but I don't see anything spinning up right there. A little bit of broad spin. And again, it's because this is where winds out of the south are feeding into this activity, but you also have the storms kind of coming into the northeast. So there's been a boundary that's been created with some of this right along that red-green line. If I put that into motion, let's see here. It might take a second to loop up the velocity. You can see that there's a little bit of that broad just kind of twist right there, just a little bit. Might be some winds picking up over the eastern shoreline of Lake Apopka as well. But I'm okay with that so far. There's nothing that stands out that makes me too concerned. That's what it looks like in reflectivity. Reset the shot. Hey, Michael, how you doing? Well, Michael, good question. It's going to get close to you here, but at this point in time, there's really not a lot of rotation left with it. We started to see a little bit of rain develop ahead and started to try and choke off this broader spin. The Weather Service not having a special weather statement on this anymore is another great sign, because I promise you the reason why they issued a special weather statement was for the funnel cloud possibility and the rotation that was inherent in a broad way with this. But you notice how there's a little bit of light rain and green on the map here in the V area right now. It's because moisture is getting fed into this, and it's going to try and choke off the inflow. We saw that happen over Merritt Island, where this just ended up becoming a larger area of heavy rain, right? Now, don't get me wrong. You could still see some lower bases, right? Things could still be a little bit on the scarier side, but right now, even looking at velocity here recently, I just don't see much anymore. And even this is basically slack winds. So we don't really have much here. So the answer is yes, but it's coming in a very weak variety. Again, you'll probably have some ominous lower clouds roll over your area, but an opportunity to really spin up anything at this point in time, I don't see it. I think if we get anything, we might get it over the rivers, as that friction difference could produce a quick spin. Very brief, but it's not out of the question. Again, coming off of Merritt Island, spins up, moves away, but that's hard to predict. It's just I've seen it from time to time, obviously, as these storms roll off the coast, especially in Brevard County, because you got land, water, intercoastal, land, Banana River, Indian River, moving away, all different frictions that can help to spin up a low-level rotation. Hey, Robbie Lynn, Brooksville, just south of Citrus, no rain here. We can see the dark clouds to the north. You could get some heavier rain and some downpours, Michael, no doubt about it. Yep. Don't know if you need it, don't know if you want it, but it's more than likely coming your way. So Robbie Lynn is joining us from Brooksville. Again, yep, a little bit of rain. And again, this is cooperating up here. No problems for Bellevue and the Villages in Wildwood and Hernando and Inverness and Floral City. And so, looking up to the north, you'll see some of that. Again, this is an interesting area here, but I'm not too concerned at this point in time. Montverde, Claremont, with that little appendage kind of sticking out. But you notice now how widespread all this rain has become. So when I switch over to our composite radar, I'm going to loop this up over the last 2 hours. So this is what's been happening over the last 2 hours. Notice again, we had the convergence of the storms producing some of those boundaries and that spin around Metro Orlando. And now over the last hour, this is all beginning to expand again. Let me be clear, if you live along the East Coast, some of this activity is going to try and build your way east. If there's any, flow to these storms, right? Steering currents, it's out of the south and west. And so it's going to try and push some of the storms back to I-95, where we could still have a few storms develop in our western zones, but they'll be a little bit more isolated in nature. But, the Marion County, northern Sumter, Citrus County stuff is moving west, but everything else is kind of either just sitting or pulling off towards the east. So Daytona, south, all the way into southern Brevard and Indian River counties, wet, somewhat stormy. You notice that the lightning count is coming up a bit right now back into Indian River County. And again, so even towards Grant, Valkyria and Micco, Barefoot Bay from the south, we could see some storms feed in and produce some heavier rain there. And we're beginning to see, as I mentioned as well earlier, that on the southern flank, now more lightning is developing over Harmony and Holopau in Osceola County. So the storms are getting a little bit stronger in our southeast areas, and everything will kind of eke its way off towards the east. Hey, Berlinda, Kissimmee is situated in light to moderate rain. Still could see an additional shower redevelop in this area, but at this point in time, it's relatively quiet with more overcast skies than anything else and just some light showers. But it's going to take a while to clear any of this activity off. It's going to be a bit. This is what it looks like with the visible satellite imagery. You can clearly see all of the instability and the mid-level spin that continues to sit over the area, and just waves of energy with our frontal boundary that has just stalled over us, which is why it's been so active, latter part of the weekend, yesterday, today, and I expect a fairly similar scenario for tomorrow as well, right? Where we'll continue to get boundaries, both sea breezes and an enhancement at the mid-levels to produce everything that we've had today and to run it right back for tomorrow, which means, again, more areas with an opportunity for a flood threat for your Wednesday afternoon too. Okay. If you guys have just tuned in, one more time I want to show you these pictures that I took earlier today. And this is the reason why I came on. Looking at the situation, I saw these kind of clouds, knew what was going to be happening in the atmosphere, and was just like, you know what? I'm going to come on the channel. I'm going to track them live with you guys. That way, if anything pops up, funnel cloud-wise, tornado-wise, we're already on the air. We're ready to go. We have our live camera network. We could check in with those at any point in time as well. But, seeing all of this, personally taking these photos, I'm like, okay, let's just jump on and cover this and see how this plays out. It's great to see that we haven't had anything, as far as a tornado warning issued. Again, the special weather statements, I promise you, were issued because of the funnel cloud threat, especially in Brevard County. And we've had the one flash flood warning in portions of Orange County as well. Again, the rain is dissipating a bit here, but still quite heavy up into northwest Orange and then portions of Seminole and into Volusia counties as well. So Orange City, Deltona, Sanford areas. Okay, friends, I think we're okay right now, right? At this point in time, we've got the flash flood warning. Still think we could get some stronger storms in the southern half of Brevard County, portions of Osceola County. That's the only area that I'm a little bit, to keep an eye on for anything to try and fill up. But if you notice that there's all of this heavier rain south, so as far as feeding in, air that hasn't been raked over by storms already and producing rotation again, that likely is not to occur. Doesn't mean that we're not going to get some good thunderstorm activity from the Merritt Island area, Satellite Beach, Palm Bay, Melbourne, Grant, Valkyria, O'Galley, back down towards Barefoot Bay, Sebastian, Indian River Shores, and even towards Harmony and Holopau, but probably just general heavier storms than anything else with not a lot of rotation. And then for the rest of the area, it's just continuing to stay wet, and it's going to take a while for this to ultimately just continue to fully diminish. Might be deep into the evening hours. So can't rule out other areas of flash flood warnings. If you're under a flash flood warning, best thing to do is just stay inside. Don't get out. Don't try and travel. Avoid the low-lying areas, the spots that flood the first in your areas. So obviously, I'm going to be monitoring the situation for you guys for tomorrow as well. Please remember that CFLW is sponsored by the Lean Law Firm of Central Florida. They are the sponsor of the channel, and they do cover the entire state of Florida. And it is storm season, just like we're seeing today. You get storm damage of any kind, wind, hail, and hurricane. They're going to walk you through every step of the insurance claim process. They do offer free consultation and policy reviews. You can go to leanonblaw.com if you would like more information. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for taking a quick second, hitting that like button for me, and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Again, this is a live only channel. I'll continue to monitor the situation for you guys, obviously the rest of the day. If there's a reason to come back on and to cover these storms with you guys live, I certainly will. And obviously, if we run it back for tomorrow with the same kinds of threats, I'll be back on live for you guys for tomorrow or whenever there is impactful weather across the area. Again, appreciate all my friends in the chat tuning in for our live coverage for today. Thank you so much again for doing so. You guys have a great rest of your day. I'll be monitoring the situation, of course. I'll be back on live when conditions warrant. You all take care. Have a good one.